This is my 2017 Q60 Red Sport, and today I'll be showing you how I have installed a 12-inch sub in the back using the factory amp. So we're going to start under the hood with the battery cover coming off. To get to your battery, I have my positive terminal hooked up with my fuse right here, nice and convenient, in case you need to replace it. And the positive wire gets to the back through a little grommet back under there, if you can see. I think it's the only boot really back there, but you're gonna have to cut yourself a little hole, feed the wire through, and then under the inside, under the glove box, you should be able to feel it kind of poking around, and you'll pull it through. Now you're gonna wanna remove all of this trim with the push pins all the way around. It's going to go up to the corner over there, and about halfway across is going to have to get disconnected to pull off this whole cover. Make your life a whole lot easier. So I already have all my wires tucked, but you can see where it kind of comes down underneath the dash, behind the glove box in the corner. That's where you'll be looking for it. And I have tucked it behind all this trim here in the side. So if you pull, all these are just press fit in. You're gonna have to use a little bit of muscle to pull it out, but don't be scared. Just try not to break the clips. You're gonna want to pull out this trim, this side skirt, kind of side step all the way across. Pull all that out. That's if you want to tuck your wires. You don't have to, but I would recommend it. Looks a lot cleaner. And then I have, so the wire is going back underneath here, across. There's a bit of a channel here. I'll put up a pic on the screen. It's going to run through the back, and then you can kind of wedge it in behind this other door panel here. Not door panel, but right there. You can kind of pull that out, wedge it in behind, and then you can kind of see the wire there. So it comes down here. It's going to kind of come out the side. Unless you want to pull off all of your inside trim to tuck it fully, but I just have it going there, and then I pulled up the rear seat. So I have it coming back here behind, and then I just pulled out the whole back seat and tucked it in behind underneath it. You can kind of see it again over there going through the corner in the back left, or rear passenger side. So coming to the back here, underneath this panel, this little flap, you can see the wire coming through the back corner here, and it runs underneath this mat, and I have everything in the trunk tucked underneath the, I guess, the floor mat, just so it looks nice and you don't have stuff all over your trunk. So to access the stock amp, which you're going to want to use if you want to tap wires like I did, is going to be underneath in the trunk, up here on the passenger side. And there's going to be a bunch of push pins along the back, kind of on a few on the side, a bunch on the top. You're going to have to just find them, pull them all out to be able to pull this trim off. So in underneath where your stock sub is, or your stock subs if you have two, I just pulled the wires off of it. I still wanted to keep my factory subs, which is why I have these things called wire taps. You basically just clip it on, crimp in your wire, and you can pull signal from them. You want to use a wiring diagram because I don't quite remember which one is positive and negative, but that's how I have this ran. And then these are just loosely up here. They're not really seeing any contact, so I'm not too concerned. Most people just crimp these on, but I like to be safe and strip a little bit of the wire off with a razor blade before I crimp it, just to make sure that it doesn't get any of this covering on it in between and ruin your connection. Now diving in underneath the mat here, I have my amp. I had to kind of cut out this little area a little bit. It's just the styrofoam. Just use a razor blade or something. Cut it out. There's just enough space to fit at least my amp. Not the most ideal space for my RCAs here, but there is a little bit of a gap, little wiggle room here, so they don't really get jammed up or anything. And then I cut this part just short enough that all my terminals can pop over top of it just in case, you know, you're getting a little rowdy on the streets and your amp shifts a little bit. But it's in here pretty snug. I haven't had any issues with it. I have all my excess wires and cables just sitting underneath here, and there's a bit of a pocket here. Kind of see, just sitting there. So under here I also have my base level selector switch, ran back, as well as a fuse tap in here. That's my signal to turn on and off the amp. I just have it wired up the driver's side, back through the front. Flip this back down. Come over here, so you can see over here I have my fuse tap and the, like I said, the base selector switch running up, basically tucked the same way as I have my power cable, except it's up the driver's side, but same process. And my ground cable, which is right here, runs through, just I guess over top, maybe on the side if you can, and it just goes underneath. Get my light back here. Runs underneath, and I just have, there's a bunch of holes underneath this styrofoam cover. I just picked a hole, whatever was close enough that my bolt fit. When it comes to trunk space in the Q60, it is pretty limited. Even fitting this box in, being a single 12, it's a pretty big box, but it's tough. It's a squeeze. You only can put it in a certain way, and then on top of that, you can't really put it anywhere other than in a corner, the other corner, which kind of defeats the purpose because you have a little cutout there. You could stand it up. I had it stood up for a little bit, but it was even more inconvenient because it only fit in that little cutout. So it had to fit like that, and was not a big fan. So I have it sitting down here like this now. I find the bass level actually sounds a little bit better than when it was vertical. So over here on the driver's side, I have my bass selector switch just tucked in between the driver's seat and the floor panel here. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's pretty tight. If you could, or if you wanted to, you could put it in your glove box maybe, or 3M tape it to trim somewhere, or just leave it sitting around, up to you. And my fuse tap, like I said, you can kind of see the cables coming from the back. I didn't bother tucking the bass selector cable just because it's going to right here, but I did tuck my fuse tap back out underneath the panel here like I did with the power cable on the passenger side, and it runs over to a little box over here, little fuse box. There'll be a little panel like this on the side right by your brake pedal, your e-brake. I believe this one here is for the radio at the bottom. I have two 10 amp fuses in the fuse tap, and there's 2 spots, but don't make the mistake of only putting in one because it won't work. You need to have 2 fuses in. Would recommend just replacing the fuses in the fuse tap with whatever you pull out of the fuse box itself. I believe they were 10 amp, which is why I replaced it with 2 10 amps. I did this quite a while ago, but do believe that's what I did. Give you a little sound test here inside the car. Make sure the trunk is closed or else it will not sound nearly as good. So it definitely shakes the car. People can hear from outside, the trunk rattles. It's heavy duty. Get the trunk to flap it out a little bit here.
You get the bag and fumble it, I get the bag and flip it and tumble it. Straight out the lot, 300 cash, and the car came with a blunt in it. Lil' mama a thot, and she got ass, and she gon' fuck up a bag. Pull up to the spot, living too fast, dropping the dip in the stash.
So the sound is really clean in here. I'm actually surprised. Sometimes I'll put it down in the back seat just to get a little bit more sound, but it's usually just because I have stuff in the back, not because I actually need to. Very pleased with how this all turned out. I do have my bass cranked on the sound system as well, just because I'm tapped off the stock bass, or the stock subs. If you don't tell the stock subs to run max power, you won't be able to tell your sub to run max power, because it'll just be sending a lower signal. And even though I have the bass controller, it's still, I have my system maxed out so that I can control it from the bass controller, and I'm not limited on the bass controller from my system. So hopefully this video was informative enough. If you have any more questions about materials I used or things like that, feel free to leave them in the comments.